All right. Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to the afternoon sessions of Virtual Check 2020. My name is John Garfola. I'm an information security analyst at Emporia State University. It is my privilege to bring to you the presentation about how to make your data useful. This presentation is brought to you by Diane Graves, Cameron Neal, and Chinmay Malala of Emporia State University. This presentation has been pre-recorded. They will not be hosting a live Q&A following the session. However, please feel free to submit any questions that you have, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. This presentation will run about 55 minutes, after which time I will close it out. And again, welcome to Check 2020. Please stand by for Diane, Cameron, and Jim.
Joining us for this Virtual Check 2020. My name is Cameron Neal, and I'm with the data management team in State. And this section is about how to make your data useful. Again, I'm Cameron Neal. I work alongside Diane Graves, who's our Director of Data Management, and Chinmay, who's a new data analyst. He's been here about a year. I was born and raised in Chicago, Kansas. That's where I live now. So COVID hasn't affected my work situation too much. It's actually been a little bit better now that I can work from home all 5 days a week instead of 3. And my role here, the management team is one of data analysts. So the data management team on campus, we look at all data, but we primarily focus on student data. So I'm analyzing that, making visual reports, data abstracts, things to help end users be able to make those business decisions for our campus and our students going forward. And then I just recently became a Cognos administrator. So Cognos is our IBM web-based tool that we use for our reporting needs. We're in the process of upgrading it, so I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But it's just another tool that we can use to help our end users actually analyze the data and make those decisions. And your data management team on your campus, they may use a different tool. There's Tableau, there's Power BI. Again, the tool is a tool. The most important part is who is using the tool and what the tool is being used for. So as we get started today, data management, how to make your data useful. One of the first things that we're going to talk about is understanding the difference between data owners, data stewards, and data consumers. And as I switch my slide here, it's important to differentiate between the three, because you need to know really who's in charge of the data, where you fall in line at. Are you a steward? Are you a consumer? Are you an owner? Data owners are accountable for the quality of the data. So our ERP system that we use is a Lucian banner. And just for example, data owner for new prospective students would be the admissions office. The new prospective student would fill out their admission, whatever is required for their admissions. They would fax that in, email it in, however they want to do it. The admissions office would then take that information and they'll type that into banner. So the admissions office is the ones that own that data. Data stewards are accountable for the day-to-day operations of that data. So data management team, we're often data stewards. Sometimes, we'll have a report out there, we'll have a data abstract, we give it to end users. Say the business office asks for, a list of new prospective students for the upcoming fall. We'll get that information to them, but as they're going through, if they see something that doesn't look right according to the data, generally they come back to us and we research it. But if there's something that's actually wrong with the data, then we got to relay that back to the data owners. So, that's just another incident where knowing where you fall in line at, and this hierarchy is important. And then you have your data consumers. These are the individuals who are actually utilizing the data. They're using it, and it's important to know that while the data, we want to provide data that's good enough for the consumers to use, but it's also the consumer's responsibility for defining what makes the data good enough to use. We don't want to be creating reports. We don't want to be creating, charts, visualizations. We don't want to be taking time creating something and it's not even useful. It doesn't really help you. It doesn't really help the end users make the decision, make the analysis that you need, so that Emporia State can continue to have the success rate that they have, so that we can continue to help students the way that we help them. So moving forward, that's just a little bit about data owners, stewards, and consumers. That's a very entry-level place to start, so that when you go back to your campus and you may be in contact with your data management team, you can know where you fall in line at, so you can help them help you. As we go into what is reporting, the technical definition of reporting is data reporting is the process of organizing data into charts and tables, visual charts and tables, in order to track performance of your business. Since we're a campus, since we're all campuses, our case is going to be our students, our departments, our programs. This raw data keeps us aware of what's happening across campus. So I'm going to talk about what the goal of reporting is in the next slide, but we're going to I like the baby step. I don't like the big brain approach things. I like to take things step by step. But the first thing we want to talk about is what is a report versus what a data extract. I'll start with data extracts. That's a lot of the times a lot of the ad hoc requests we get are sometimes data extracts. When COVID started, I believe it was maybe the Alumni Foundation. They wanted to know about how many students were enrolled on campus from a particular state. That's not something that we're necessarily going to create a report for. Reports, we want it to be visual, we want it to be pleasing. And reports is something that we want to make that all departments, ideally, we want to make universal reports that all departments can use, so we don't have to continue to reinvent the wheel. But data extracts, it's just quick, like how many students were from state A, state B, state C. As report writers, Chinmay and myself or Diane, we can just go into SQL and just run that real quick. It's nothing personal. It's no personal student information. So our FERPA coordinator, she signs off on things like that. But a report is definitely where we have Cognos report requests that we ask anyone that asks for a report that's not already there, that they go ahead and fill that out, and it'll be routed through the proper channels of approval. FERPA coordinator being one of those. And after that gets approved by everyone that needs to be approved by, and it gets sent over to data management team, then we're going to make a report. When we make reports, we want it to be visually pleasing. It's one thing just to look at an Excel sheet, but we need to customize it. We need to add. We need to make it colorful so that it's not boring. If you wanted to read a stat book, you can read a stat book. The data is important, but it needs to be in a way that everyone can see it, understand it, and quickly understand it. Another thing about reporting is that we're in the process of trying to create a common definitions, a little fact sheet, because this is one area that is very easy and it's very common to get misread in. I know when I first started here 3 years ago, next week actually, one thing that was sticking out to me, and I'm sure Chinmay will talk about it next as he talks about some of the challenges that he's had going from being a grad student to coming into his first real career and then being higher ed, but enrolled versus registered. These are two completely different terms. They have two different meanings, but it almost sounds like they can be synonyms. So in Emporia State, when we talk about someone being enrolled, a student being enrolled, they're just enrolled to be a student in Emporia State. They're not actually registered for any classes, and that's what registering means. So there was an incident when I first started that a department asked for their enrolled students. Now, I didn't think I think I may have saw registered indicator first, so I used registered, and then I had to get back to me. She had to explain the difference, and then that's why it's important to have these common definitions so that everyone is on the same page. And then we also have some data edits, and we'll talk about, and I'll actually show you some of those later in one of the examples that I have. But as data stewards, we don't own the data, but as we're creating these data extracts, as we're creating these reports, as we're just analyzing the data before we send them out to end users, when we see something that doesn't quite look right, as a steward, we would not be diligent over what we're stewarding if we don't refer back to the data owners. Say, hey, this doesn't look right. Can you kind of explain this, or can you confirm? Just to double back and check. But there's a little bit of issue sometimes with GPAs. I haven't seen this much lately, but there's some GPAs coming in that's higher than 4.0. Now we know that there's some high schools that their GPA scale is not on a 4.0 scale; it's higher. But coming into Emporia State, to keep the data consistent so we can report on it, so we can make decisions. Um, it needs to be some type of consistency. So, admissions officers have their own process that they somehow scale when, it's a student that comes in to Emporia State and the GPA scales higher to 4.0. They have some type of way to, scale that down and make it transfer onto a 4.0 scale. But when we see things like that, that we need to report that back to it. Because even though there's a process for it, sometimes things fall through the crack. We're all human. We all sleep at night. So, we're not always going to be perfect, but as long as we're all doing our due diligence and checking and being analytical, then we can make sure that the little things that slip through the cracks get fixed. And then going back to the common definitions, one thing to think about, and I will share my screen here. Go back. But one thing that, for common definitions, we want to make sure that when someone asks for a particular report or, a certain field, they want us to report on certain things, our ERP system, our banner system, is filled with forms. And there's production tables that actually are the foundation of those forms. Now, as an end user, someone that's in the admissions office, someone that's in the registrar's office, finance and budget, they may not know the actual production table behind it. And that's to be accepted and to be expected. They're not technicals. They're not the ones that's actually, in the databases, writing code, writing SQL. They're not the techie users per se. So one thing that we need to do is to make sure that we are all getting familiar, and I'm pulling up our banner system right now. And we just need to make sure we're all familiar. Oh. Sorry. Technical difficulties here. Apparently it doesn't like my password. There we go. But one thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that, we're all on the same page. So just for example, and I'm going to use myself, that's not against FERPA. I am no longer a student and I'm giving this consent for the sake of this presentation. But let's say that, the graduate office wanted to look at, students' personal information that FERPA would allow. I'm only using this because it's a quick and nice example. But the form that you would do this in is spading. And when you get to this spading form, it's going to ask you for an E number. And the E number on Emporia State, that's just our ID, our identification. So when I put mine in here, I'll move this over to go. So we'll see that there's a form that populates, yada, yada, yada. So if the graduate office say, hey, we want to know, what if there was we want to know about their middle name or, something over here. They would just say, hey, I want to look on this spading form. I want to get this person's last name and some other information. Well, they see that, but what we can see here when you click on it is down here, this Spriten current person last name, it tells us the table. So that's where the common definitions come in. That's where being on the same page comes in. We always ask that when someone makes a report request, that they give us as much details as possible. And we don't say that to just be nitpicky, but we say that so that we can, eliminate some of the extra time it's going to take to communicate questions that could have been answered in the first place, so that we are able to get the exact columns and fields, the exact data that you're looking for. Because there's other forms here, for example, that, you put in, if I put in my E number, I'm going to get my last name, first name, middle name. But because that information is in a different form, it's populated by a different table. And if it's populated by a different table, I can't get certain tables to join and to match up correctly in the way to give you the data that you're expecting to, and ultimately in a way that gives us correct data. The last thing we want to do is report on data that's inconsistent, data that's incorrect. And that doesn't help us do our job well. That doesn't help the end users, any departments, make sound decisions. So that's all for Banner. Let me switch my screen back to my PowerPoint. So I had talked about, what is the goal of reporting, and analysis is always the goal. And the technical definition for data analysis is the process of examining data with the goal of answering a question that supports decision making. Analysis can reveal powerful insights if you are able to uncover why something is happening and what can be done about it. So the too long direct read of that, the main gist of that is, analysis is data that's presented in a way that easily allows users to make analysis that can drive the success of a business. So for success of our campuses, success of our students in our departments and our programs that's on campus. And, when we want to be analytical, when we want to make sure that we, give a sound analysis, there's always three things that we want to do. First, we want to start with specific questions. And this starts with the data management team and those that's requesting the data. Because when we get specific questions, like I talked about earlier, it helps us as the data management team create reports that are valuable and impactful. Again, if there's certain, fields that can be in several different forms, again, different forms are populated by different tables. If we don't get a specific form, then we can go out and create a report. But when we send it out to you, you're expecting 28,000 students or 2,800 students, and you only see 900. That can easily be attributed to we just simply pulled the wrong form, and that's something that can be easily fixed if we just have that information up front. But one recent request that we had was from I believe it was from the graduate office, but they wanted to look at their enrollment trends and spikes because Emporia State has recently been using a graduate accelerator program. So this individual came to us and said, "Hey, we noticed that we had a lot of enrollment during this particular time, and we just want to know if you can make a historical kind of a historical tracker to see like when it spikes, so we can kind of predict when to advertise these new programs and things that we have." And that kind of gets into the interpreting results that we're going to get into lastly. But things like that, specific questions like that, really help us create something that's useful, and not only useful for the graduate office, but we can take the same logic. And apply it to undergrad. We can apply it to different programs. So being specific really helps us to make something that everyone can use and something that's really impactful. And then identify the data sources. We've been touching on that briefly. Just being on the same page. Is it banner or is it ODS? What banner form is it in? Our banner tables are production tables, and our ODS, our operational data store. That's like a snapshot of our banner table. So our ODS is built off of certain extraction dates, and that's a lot of that is for the institutional research or institutional effective office, whatever that department is called on your campus. But they have a day 1 type of data, day 10, day 20, current and future. So I believe right now, since our semester's over, it didn't switch, the extract type switch back to current. And then when semester starts again, it'll be day 1 on the 10th day. But that's for them so they can report to federal. But that's just another example. There's a lot of different places you can get data. Let's make sure we identify the correct place so that we can lay the correct groundwork first, and we don't have to go back through it. And then interpret results. Now that we know what we can change, what can we change to make the situation improve. And like I kind of touched about a little bit with the graduate office earlier, they want to look at the enrollment trends and when their enrollment spikes. We've seen during this time, they asked, or the individual came and said, we noticed that for this upcoming spring, so this last spring, our accelerator program, they noticed a lot of enrollment over that Christmas break. So then we created this report a little bit before spring break. Obviously COVID was going on, but historically we can look at those times that students had those breaks. So spring break, summer if they're not in summer classes, or even during summer between the first block and second block, between semesters. That's when enrollment was higher than generally during the semester. At one time, because when we came to the conclusion, and it makes sense. Students have the extra time. They don't have to worry about classes. They don't have to worry about homework. Even if they have jobs, they have extra time that they can actually sit down. What classes do I want to do? What kind of path do I want to take to get my degree? So, it kind of came with the conclusion that we can advertise enrollment in new programs before these enrollment spike periods occur, and because we were able to give them a historical kind of snapshot, and then let them see that past trend over Christmas break, it kind of became a predictive analysis. And at the end of the day, predictive analysis is very useful because if you can predict what's going to happen, if it's a good thing, you can enable it. But if it's something that may not be positive, you can, because it's predictive, you can do something to try to soften whatever blow may come. And okay, not quite. But we use Cognos, which is an IBM web-based tool for assessing data and reporting. And the tool that you use, like I said earlier, that's not the important part. Whatever tool you use, you have to learn how to use it. You have to configure it to work with your campus. Cognos is just what we use, and we're in the process of upgrading our Cognos. We're a little bit behind, but we may do with what we can. So for us using Cognos, we can't just allow anyone to access that, because our Cognos is tied to our data warehouse, it's tied to Banner, it's tied to other systems of record. So we have to make sure that the management team, as stewards of data, we have to make sure that we're one, being secure, and that two, we're waiting for the approval process to happen. So we have Cognos access requests that sometimes get put in when people know that there's a report out there, but maybe someone is new to a department. They need to access to that same data that those in that department have, or if people switch department to department. That's one thing that I've noticed when I started taking over as administrator. Sometimes when they switch, we grant them that access to the new department, but they still have their old access. They shouldn't have their old access. If you go from the art department to the business office, you don't need art anymore. So we need to be good stewards. Again, stewards. We don't own anything, but we're just stewarding what we're being placed in charge of. And then I talked about Cognos report requests a little bit earlier. We need those, and even if it's a modification, we request those. We just have something that not only is a fallback for us, but it's a fallback for those that's requesting, and it's something that we can all look at. One thing that we can all look at and say, okay, this is what was asked, this is what we provided. If there's any questions about anything, we have something to refer to. Again, just keep everyone on the same page. We can do a lot more together when we're all on the same page. And one of our most popular reports, I'll pull that up here, is our Universal Measures Monitor report. Now this already existed before I started working here, but this continually goes under some revisions as people across campus say, hey, this would probably be something that I want to use, but it doesn't have this. It doesn't have a particular column. So because it's a universal report, we'll sit there and we'll ask the departments, is this something that you think would be useful? Is something that you think would be beneficial? Because again, if it's beneficial to everyone, why create one report for every department when we can just create one report for the entire campus? So that's why we are big encouragers of universal reports. But you'll see on this report, this is very inclusive. You have your reporting term. So for us, spring of 2020, we on Emporia State, that's 2020 for the year in 10, our spring term. Our terms go 10 spring, 30 summer, 50 fall, and then a 1 after each for our AOP programs. We started our accelerated program. So spring accelerated is 11, summer accelerated is 31, and fall accelerated is 51. We have a student here, which is very important, which we need to have on all of our reports. Is student information confidential? If it's yes, then we're either not going to include the student in the report or data extract, or our federal coordinator say, hey, you can include these students for this request, but then make a warning to the requester, the end user, hey, don't send this information out to anyone. We have here, are they enrolled in the current reporting term? So this kind of goes with the enrolled versus registered. Are they enrolled? No. Yes. And really, I think that should be registered, but because these students are in here, but they may be registered for a different semester. And then here, the blacked out sections, we have our E number, last name, first name. These are things that, can identify a student, so it's going to be blacked out for the sake of keeping students confidential, staying FERPA compliant. We have here admit type, international, graduate, graduate pending, admitted, ethnicity. So, we have a lot of, this report is very inclusive. This report almost answers a lot of the questions that, the basic Cognos user, the basic person on campus is going to need. Because, one of the major things we always get asked is, who's our majors, who are our minors? Everyone wants to know who should be in what classes, who should be graduating with this program, that program. So that's what this report provides. And then it also provides, over here, hours. It provides your advisor or the student's advisor's information. So if you see a student that you see is kind of struggling, and you know that they're in your program, or they're in your major, because they're on the sheet, you can filter this information and make it useful to you. This is the way that you can contact the advisor, and you two can maybe talk or concerning your student. And so this is using Cognos, and we have a retention project, not so much a report, but it's more of an analysis. And this is why analysis is so important to reporting. Part of it, we started this as reporting, but it turned into a real analysis. So using Power BI, again, the tool doesn't matter. You have to just know how to use the tool and make it work for you. But here we have our retention, and this is in development. As you can see here, if you look down at cohort, the last time this was touched was 2018, so it's a little bit outdated, but this is going to serve the purpose of showing you why analysis is important. So here, we see we have retention here. We look at, go up here to 2012. These undergrad freshmen, it just shows like from fall to spring, fall to fall. What is their retention rate? How often are they coming back? And looking at that, we can look at this and say, okay, what factors help keep students here? What factors kind of let students stray? We're currently working on something with the National Student Clearinghouse to kind of see a lot of students that drop off. Are they transferring somewhere else? Or are they just done with school? Yada yada yada. But having a good foundation allows you to dig into a lot of different areas to make good analysis and make good business decisions. Because if a student, let's say you have a big percentage of students that are leaving your campus or leaving ESU for KU because KU offers a certain program. Well, if we're able to find that out, we may be able to offer that program also. So a lot of those students that left, they may have stayed if we had that. Just things like that. That's why analysis is so important. You can make decisions off of analysis and have a sound logical judgment about it, and you feel good about it. You're not just shooting shots in the dark. But as we go through here, we have enrollment. We have enrollment by cohorts, and this is cool because it's actually drilled down on the students. Now I'm not going to do that because over here you see we have the report, but you can also look at the data and the models that it's based off of. It's Power BI. It's touching our banner systems, touching our banner tables, and for parts of it, it is touching ODS. As you go through here, first generation retention table, gender, first generation and gender, high school GPA, and ACT scores. Now these are averages, but if there's something that you notice right away, which I believe most of you will, this 8.2 here for average GPA. That's extremely high. There's no explaining that. There's some type of scale that didn't get, when we talked about earlier, admissions office, they have their own process for, translating those GPAs as higher than 4.0, on a 4.0 scale so that it is consistent and it works with our campus. But, that's why having data edits is important. That's why paying attention while we're working with data, that's why all that's important. That's why it's good to be a diligent steward. Because, you see here, 4.0, 4.3, 4.4, 4.0, like, yeah, that's great, but we know that's not the average. Not every student that came into ESU was a 4.0 student. It'd be great if they were, but that's just not the reality of it. 6.0 here. Starts to taper off. I'm sure if we continued out and we did 1950 and this upcoming fall, that this process it will start to level out, because it was around this 2018, 2019, beginning of 2019 maybe, that we kind of saw this data edit. We started making strides to kind of get this issue resolved. But seeing things like this, it makes it hard to report on because it's not very accurate, and we don't want to be giving out inaccurate data, because then that's going to create an inaccurate analysis. And if a decision is made off of an inaccurate analysis, it's not going to be positive for our campus, not going to be positive for our students. We're not going to be able to help students the way that we want to help them. And also, we have majors down here: housing retention, population, GPA, athletics, and then we have activities. Now I'll focus on activities a little bit because, I know as a former athlete, I played football at Emporia State. So I know that for me to continue to have been playing, I had to maintain a certain type of GPA. There are certain things that I had to do, but for me to stay engaged in football, I had to stay engaged in school. So looking at activities GPA, you can look at this and see, 2 point, and this first section here is for students that are not involved in any activities, and the one on the right is students that are. GPAs, they're not the end all be all. We all have some students that they may not perform very well in the classroom because they're disengaged, but when it comes to the actual hands-on stuff, they can make it happen. But just generally speaking, students that are involved in activities on campus, whether it's sports, extracurricular activities, chess club, et cetera, et cetera, students that are engaged in those type of activities are often more successful in the classroom. So when we see things like this, we make these type of analysis, we can sit there and say, we should probably be trying to promote students to join some type of club, be active in something. Because the more students feel engaged, the more successful they're likely to have, more success they're likely to have in the classroom. And you can kind of see the same here with hours completed. They're probably not going to drop out, because they drop out, it's going to have some consequences to their GPA, which can ultimately have some consequences to their involvement in whatever activities that they're part of. So it's kind of small things like that can have a big influence and a big drive on our campus. And like I mentioned earlier, we're in the process of upgrading our college notes. Our college notes is a bit outdated. It was kind of close to maybe being outdated when I had joined. But we're in the process of upgrading that. And when we upgrade that, it should make things a lot smoother for our users. It'll definitely be a lot more friendly. It'll be a lot more friendly user interface. It's very visual. It's visually pleasing. What we have now is very, it's very autonomous. It's a lot of lists. But when we upgrade our cognites, and Diana definitely talk about this later, we'll be able to, start moving forward to having dashboards where you don't need to even look and see like what kind of reports are out there. You can maybe go out to like your department's page, and there will be, web-based. It might be 3, 4, 5 reports that are commonly used, that are accessible to, those that work in the department. Of course, there'll be authentication you need to do, but that's just what we're moving towards. And we know that, through some of our previous requests, some of the issues that we've had with Cardinals, definitely be something that, will benefit the entire, the campus as a whole. And really that is all that I have, with how to make your data useful. I'm gonna give it over to Chinmay so he can talk about some of his challenges that he had going from being a grad student to, working in higher ed for the first time. And then after Chinmay will be Diane, who will talk about the future. I hope that this was useful. I hope that this helps you connect more with your data management team, so that you can help them help you, and that they can help you, or so that they can also help you help them. Hope that this was useful, and I'm giving you over to Chinmay.
Hello and welcome to Virtual Check 2020. So this is Chinmay, and I work as a data analyst at the data management team at Emporia State University, and my team members include Cameron Neal and my director, Diane Graves. So let's just dive right into my topic or presentation, adapting to higher ed. So adapting to data management in higher ed. So I was basically given this topic since it's just been a year since I first started at Emporia State University working as a data analyst. So they thought that this subject was something very interesting to be shared with. So, and I work on this for a year now. So it's been really nice working at Emporia State University. So let's just dive right into the subject. So introduction, so a little about me. So my name is Chinmay, and I'm basically from the southern part of India, a place called Bangalore. It's also called the Silicon Valley of India. So kind of more tech stuff goes on there. So, and then I did my bachelor's in information science and engineering. And then I came up to I came up to masters. Uh, I also hold a degree in masters in management information systems at NIU. So um, data and information kind of fascinate me. So I just wanted to go into a career that included working with data. So that was the main point that I wanted to be in with the industry that I worked with. So as of today, when I first started at ESU, when it comes to me improvising my report writing skills, I was both skeptical and optimistic at the same time when I first started at ESU, since it was comparatively an unknown territory. But yes, I didn't know report writing to that extent, but yes, I was familiar with it, and I had the scope of learning it. So yes, so this presentation is solely based on reflecting on my first year at ESU and how I got adapted to the data management team in Emporia State. So coming to the background, so basically I have 2 years of working experience as a data analyst and 6 months as an intern as a data analyst. So I had experience working with data, but the data that I was working with was client data rather than student data. So this was basically a kind of rip-off, but I still had I still had the knowledge of what to do with data. So this was kind of helpful in a way. So and I was stepping into a new territory, like I said, or a new workplace that included new tools and new stuff to work on. So I was stepping into it. So, but the data management team, or as we call it, DMA, they developed me overall in aspects of report writing skills, closing on-base tickets, closing help desk tickets, writing Cognos reports, using SQL, and working on modified reports. So this was very helpful for me in developing these new responsibilities that I had to incur in me. So I really like these facts. So this is just about the background that I have. And now coming to the challenges, uh, these are some of the challenges that I face. So this is my main focus area that I'll be focusing on during my first year of employment at Emporia State University. So fulfilling information requests for end users, learning the new ERP system, or what we call it, the banner, working on new report requests, working on modified requests, and terminologies and technologies in higher ed. So information requests. So working on information requests was quite challenging when I first started, as I was working with a relatively new type of data and new kind of data that had different data requirements and had to be scrutinized in a way based on the end users. And data, so requests would include data from spanning from wide areas of the universities like payroll, finance, HR, or even math, like suppose the math department wanted math students, data related to math students or something like, and the psychology department wanted data related to their department. So it was kind of a big, huge deal to get in familiarity with all the tables that were associated with all these kinds of departments, but it was fun to know. And the new ERP banner. So this was kind of new to me. So Banner was one of the ERP systems that I really did not have an abstract idea about. The data in Banner was relevant to look at when we had requests that required data be extracted from particular banner forms. And although the challenging part was I was looking at tables at the front end, whereas the end users were looking at banner forms that were in the that were in the front end. So the relating data that the end user was using was what I had to look for when fulfilling information requests. So this was kind of really challenging for me since both the data that they were looking at and I was looking at were completely different, but related in some sort. So, and figuring out this was a major task. Developing reports from ground zero. So initially, developing new reports were quite interesting as I had started off and learned my way up to develop reports from ground zero. The only challenge that I faced during this time was I envisioned data to come from a single source or to be straightforward, but I had to mess up with data that had been coming up from different tables and different sources. And I had to sort the data and format the data based on the end users, which was also quite challenging because they had specific formats that they wanted the data in, and we had to do it in that particular order. So this helped me to get familiarized with the different vast collection of banner tables that had been there, like Saturn and stuff like that. So these had different kinds of tables, in fact, and which gradually helped me in getting to develop other reports as well. So modified reports, getting to work on modified reports was challenging, really challenging. For instance, learning the code that goes into learning the code and the understanding the SQL basically that is written by another author was quite challenging. I had to analyze and understand the aspects of the code and the perspective of the author who had first designed the report in the first place. Frankly speaking, teamwork played a crucial role. So my team was best when it comes to having patience with me or having to put up with me for these kinds of things. They were very patient in teaching me stuff. They were really patient uh, in helping me understand that data, how to work with modified reports and how to understand code and the perspective of the author. So this was a major role that the team played in my understanding of modified reports. And some of the technologies in higher ed are SQL, IBM Cognos, Tableau, Excel, and Team Dynamics. So honestly, when it comes to SQL, it was the most predominant tool that I had dived into when I was in my undergrad. So when developing Cognos, and this helped me developing Cognos reports from scratch, which was not that easy and not that too hard because I knew SQL, but embedding that SQL into Cognos was a bit challenging since I had to get the UI part right too. And this was not that challenging because I was familiar with SQL from my previous years of experience, excuse me. So IBM Cognos was a relatively new tool for me to work on since I haven't worked on it previously. But when it comes to report writing, it's almost similar to the way that SQL is written, but just we need to figure out the UI part, like where do the prompts go and stuff like that. So IBM Cognos to some extent is what I have learned. And I've learned also the new stuff like crosstabs and stuff. So I've learned some new innovative stuff that I can do in IBM Cognos. And Tableau was one of the rules that tools that I really enjoyed working with, as it was the tool that was the main focus throughout my career in visualization. And also to be working on with Tableau is really nice and kind of easy for me since I was well versed with it. Excel, Microsoft Excel. So I used Excel basically to run month-end reports and stuff like that. And I was also well versed with Excel, TDX or help desk tickets. So these were tickets that had been assigned to our team members in random. So I had to take some. I take some help desk tickets and Cameron does some tickets. So these were basic fixes that had to be done. But although the fixes were done, the working environment for fixing these help desk tickets was really nice because of team dynamics. Finally, I would conclude, although that my introductory report writing skills was not up to the level that I would expect it to be, but with the guidance of Cameron and Diane, my team members, I would actually accomplish this gradually. Adapting to data management in higher ed was something thoroughly enjoyed, as well as learned many things and enhanced me overall when it comes to me understanding report writing in Cognos. It has been a wonderful journey, and my team is really good at what they do. And it was the best team that I could learn from, frankly speaking. So, and I also understood that there are people out there who have the desire and determination to build in knowledge and information, irrespective of their age. And this being the fact that really actually fascinates me to a whole new different level. So I would finally conclude that my understanding of data and reports were clearly better.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Check 2020. And this is the session for data management and how we can make data work for our campus. You've already heard Cameron and Chinmay speak about their roles on the campus at Emporia State University. And my name is Diane Graves. I'm going to share with you a little bit about my background and how I see things shaping up for the future. I am cautiously admitting that I've been in higher ed now since 2002, so that's almost 20 years, which is absolutely remarkable. My involvement in higher ed has always been in the data management side. I worked in institutional research at a university, at Washburn University, as a matter of fact, for 8 years. And now I've been at Emporia State in the IT area, first in administrative solutions and now in data management for the last 10 years. Prior to that, my experience was also involving data and reporting for magazine publishing out of Topeka and Lawrence, Kansas. So it's all about the numbers, and our lives have changed as we've come along. Technology has enabled us to change, and demand has changed things as well. The decision makers are not waiting. They're not willing to wait. They can't wait. They need information right away. The involvement that we've had with the coronavirus and how we've had to prepare for that and respond to that has been phenomenal. And data has been necessary every step of the way. What is our student population doing during this time of uncertainty? Are they dropping all their classes? Are they canceling and shifting to a different class? There's just a lot of questions. Are they, here we are in the spring semester as this takes place, and are our students registering for the fall semester? So there's a lot of questions that students, their behavior is changing, and there's a lot of questions that our campus has about the direction they're heading. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about the future. Cameron and Chinmay talked about how things are configured right now for our department and what the challenges that new employees in this field face, and also the challenges that we face on a daily basis providing the information that our users need. So just to give a little bit of history, because that does help, we have about 3,000 reports that we have written in Cognos since we implemented Banner in 2007. Let that sink in. 3,000 reports. And you know what's happened? We're not writing many new reports now. And the reason is we have the data already created in a report somewhere within the Cognos system. So our users across campus, administrative offices and academic offices, are not requesting many new reports. They may request a modification to an existing report, but new reports just aren't being asked for. And part of that is because we've created what we call these universal reports, the one that Cameron referred to as the majors report. That report, all academic departments can go to one area, one report, put in their parameters to run that report and get their data back. So we're not maintaining, say, 20 different majors reports. We're maintaining one, and everyone is able to access it. And we've done that with other data as well, advisees, graduates by term, other pieces of information. We've universalized them so that all departments can go to one report, and we maintain a single report on that subject. But there's more that can be done, and we plan to do that over the next couple of years. One is eliminate the need to drill down through a Cognos folder structure to get to your report. That's archaic, in my opinion. The report should be front and center, right there greeting you every morning on a website, on a portal site, whatever. There obviously with security, but the data should be that accessible to where you log into your computer, you go to your Hornet 365, which is our university portal, and you go to your spot, and there's your information that's tailored to you, rather than you having to go hunt and peck and find it. So we have goals to make the data more accessible while also adhering to security standards as well. The other thing is visualizations. We do virtually no visualizations up to this point, and we need to change that. There are some data points that simply can be displayed with a dashboard, with a figure, with a graphic, rather than needing an extract of data. And we plan to make sure we can implement that in the next couple of years, and it will be part of what we implement when we upgrade to Cognos 11. Furthermore, 3,000 reports. With staff turnover and with the inability to overlap outgoing staff with incoming staff, what's happened is that a single report may be requested to be developed under a different name, but multiple times. So we may have, and we do have, multiple versions of one report. And so within the next 2 years, our goal is to minimize that, work with our departments and eliminate that redundancy. I know there's one department that needs to do timesheets. They're a big department. They need to do timesheets by this group, this group, this group, this group, and they have an individual report for each group. So, with some modification and some understanding, we can probably combine that into one group, and they just do a parameter. Some of these reports have been around for 15 years, and we know a lot more today than we did back then. So we're able to make some of these modifications, and I think that within the next 2 years we'll be successful with that. The other thing that is a personal goal of mine is actually it's a job description goal, is to document some of these things. We have interesting values in some of our validation tables, and over time, 15 years, we may be losing some of the people that know what those values mean. So we'll be documenting these values. We'll be documenting processes, and even things like interfaces. Why did we set this interface up? How is it being used? How frequently does it run? So there's all types of documentation that needs to be done, and that is landing in the data management group as well. And that's perfectly fine, because we don't want to leave here with loose ends and people asking asking questions and scratching their head. So we have a lot of goals coming down the pike. A lot of it is tied to new technology. One of the bigger things that we have coming down the pike is bringing the third-party systems into, and the data from those systems into integrate with the data within Banner. If right now, if you want residence hall data, you're going to need to get it from the StarRes system, and it's an effort to integrate with that system to get that data. Same thing with undergraduate recruiting, graduate recruiting, any type of data that's now housed in a third-party system is a challenge to get to, and a real challenge to integrate with the Banner data. But that's part of our goals over the next 2 years. So our goals are, we're not headed for artificial intelligence. We're looking at 2 years here, and artificial intelligence, I'm thinking maybe 5 years. But the goals that we do have will bring data together in a meaningful manner, in a secure manner, and with some insight into what the data represents, so that our users can make healthy and sound decisions. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We appreciate your participation with us. And from the data management team at Emporia State University, have a wonderful day. Thank you.
On behalf of Diane, Chinmay, and Cameron, we'd like to thank you for joining us for this informative dive into harnessing the power of data. We hope you've enjoyed this session, and we'll hope you rejoin us for future sessions later today and tomorrow. On behalf of the presenters, I'm John Garfola. Have a good day.